All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bonnie Abramson. I am the Online Education Director for the United Square Dancers of America, and we are thrilled to have you here today. Our presentation is called You Don't Have to Be a Caller to Teach SSD. And we are thrilled to have with us Mr. Kip Garvey from Ione. Kip is a longtime caller. He actually began calling as a teenager in 1960. Initially, he was club caller for a teen square dance club in Andover, Massachusetts, and he's been calling for several teen and adult clubs over the years. Kip has taught dances every year since 1960. He is one of CALLERLAB's first certified caller coaches, and Kip has been the featured lecturer at several caller schools across the country and in Europe. He has authored several magazine articles and technical documents, including a recently completed book on the technical aspects of square dance choreography entitled Nuts and Bolts, and another recently completed book for newer callers entitled Call Me Crazy. Kip created the first online caller training facility that went live in 2017. My apologies. The Central Sierra Caller School, and he is actively mentoring callers all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kip Garvey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I see all the hand clapping, but I can't hear a thing. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And this is a subject, of course, that's very dear to my heart. And that's how we can bring our wonderful activity to more of the general public. We have explored lots of alternative options that we've had in the past, and almost every single one of them have been based on the fact that we need a sponsoring club. We need a caller, and we need money because we have to rent halls and we have to pay callers. And it occurred to me a couple of years ago, actually about 4 years ago, that if we had a way that we could present square dancing to newer dancers without the use of a caller, who happens to be probably one of the top expenses that we have, it would be very beneficial. The idea is the more new blood we can inject into the activity, the more callers downstream will be able to enjoy the benefits of that by having increased populations of dancers dancing to them on a regular basis. So it's a sacrifice that I think is mutually enjoyed or participated in by both club members, and have a whole package available whereby somebody who's not a caller can take this package of pre-recorded calling and present it to new dancers. And that's what this entire discussion is going to be about. I've been developing such a program for the last 3 years. It's not an easy thing to do, even to just compile all of the recordings that are necessary in order to put a complete square dance package together, such as SSD, which is what we're going to talk about. It takes a lot of time. You can't just do it by running a single lesson number 1, record that, and figure that that's going to be the result, because about half of what you record is not usable. So it takes years to compile all this data together, and it's been done. I've done it. I'm fairly proud of it. It's not perfect. I keep working on it, trying to improve it. But the idea is that if you are a competent square dancer, you can take this package, you can get yourself together with a small group of new dancers and benefit the activity by bringing square dancing to these brand new dancers using this package, this method. Callers who are involved in setting up and running and conducting SSD, which is a relatively new program. If this is the first time you've been running it, maybe this season coming up in September or January, this package could help you. It gives you ideas. Like, let me just give you one small one. If you listen to the first track of the first lesson You will not hear me use the term Alaman left. You will not hear me use the term right and left grand. Instead, I purposely use words that I know newer dancers will understand without bringing in a foreign language to them. And that's exactly what our square dance terminology is. It's a brand new language. And I'll ask them, for instance, if to do an Alaman left by turning their corner by the left forearm. Come back to the partner, shake hands, go forward 5, and that's your right and left grand. This is done intentionally. It's not very long after the first lesson that I begin bringing in the terminology of right and left grand and Alaman left, so that then they begin to understand that that action is related to those terms. I've got a significant amount of years under my belt teaching new dancers. I don't want to say that I've experienced everything, because every single year there's always something new that comes up. But that has been a preferred method of mine. And I have several other techniques that I use throughout the 12 session series in SSD that could be helpful. And it's easily understood. If you're a dancer and not a caller, you don't have to worry about the calling aspect, but you do have to worry about knowing enough about the calls and the definitions of the calls to be able to walk people through the calls before you play any of the tracks. If the tracks included the actual teaching of the calls, and there are a few tracks that do include them, they would be twice the size as they are now. Some of you online, I see, have already downloaded the complete package that we're talking about. And you know that it takes a long time to download all 12 lessons. These files are large because they contain a lot of data. And in downloading them, it just takes a lot of time. Sometimes the downloads get interrupted and you have to redo them again. You download these lessons one at a time, and there are 12 lessons in the bundle. And that's the method that you use to procure and gain access to these tracks. As a dancer, like I said, the most important thing to do is to understand the definitions of the calls. We include in the package the current teaching guide that was developed at CALLERLAB and approved and sanctioned by them. And CALLERLAB, if you're not aware of CALLERLAB, is an international organization of callers all around the world. And when you start getting a body of interested and educated people like we have in our CALLERLAB membership, it takes a long time for things to get finalized. The SSD program began its development in the 2012, 2013, 2014 time era, and was not approved by CALLERLAB until 2022. So as you can see, they take a lot of time, a lot of deliberation, a lot of discussion before they will accept a program of this nature. So with that in mind, let's start see if I can get my slides up for you, and we'll start the presentation here. So we're at Beyond the Dance Floor, and subject matter is basically you don't have to be a caller to teach a beginner class. And that's where we started in my introductory remarks. We're going to be asking you to present your questions as we go along, and Bonnie will be the arbiter of these questions and get them in front of me and the whole group here as we go along. So why do we need to do this? Well, the activity, as you well know, is in dire need of new dancers. What's even worse is we don't have enough callers. It takes a long time to train oneself to become a caller. It takes a long time, probably 5 years before an individual becomes a fully functional caller, able to sell his trade to the general public. It just takes a long time. Our callers generally come from our square dance population. So if our square dance population is down in numbers, you can see automatically the number of callers that are going to be produced is also going to be down. Plus the fact that most of the guys I run with are not spring chickens. We're all getting pretty old. We're going to have to put the mic down at some point in time. We need new callers desperately, but at the same time, we need a method to bring new dancers into our organization, into our square dance family. Pre-recorded dances are available to do this, and it's not a brand new idea. When my parents were dancing, and now I'm going back to the actually the late 50s, when my parents were dancing, they learned a lot of their dancing at that time by dancing to these the 10-inch reels, a quarter-inch tape uh, of that a lot of dancers were doing at that time. They would tape callers as they came through town. Then they would take these tapes back to somebody's house. They'd all get together and they'd try to dance the material that the caller had presented. So learning from pre-recorded dance tapes, in our case, would be pre-recorded digital tracks, is not a new idea. It's been around for a long, long time. Any competent dancer can do this. If you've been around and dancing for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, if you're dancing advanced, for instance, if you're dancing plus really, really well, if you can understand the nature of spatial relationships and between the dancers in a square, all 8 dancers, if this is easy for you to comprehend, then it's going to also be fairly easy for you to teach new dancers how to dance. Many of the clubs that we have today are struggling. They're struggling because the membership is down. When a club is struggling, its finances are generally low. And so it becomes really important if a club can find an alternate method to bring new dancers into the club when it cannot, in fact, afford another night to rent a hall and another night to have to pay a caller to do a beginner class. These classes are basically designed to introduce dancers to the first 50 calls that they'll need to know, which is the basis for all other calls that they'll learn after that. And so it's important that whoever is going to be teaching have some knowledge of downstream training. And by that, I mean plus and advanced is really great. So what do we need? Well, first of all, we need a place to dance. We need 110 square feet. We don't care if it's somebody's kitchen. We don't care if it's somebody's family room. We don't care if it's a 3-car garage where you pull the cars out and get the folks in there. It doesn't have to be a rented location, is what I'm trying to say. If you can, if you think you can afford to rent a place, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. You need a set of organized lessons. As I said, CALLERLAB has spent several years, 7, 8, 9 years developing the SSD program, and they have provided a teaching guide, which is a lesson-by-lesson teaching guide. And that's included in the package that you would download as well. It's also available and is free to the CALLERLAB website. I'm going to cover exactly how you go about acquiring those documents in a slide or two here. Your pre-recorded dances are that's the meat of the product. As far as I know, no one has put together a comprehensive set of lessons with pre-recorded tips. And that's what I'm going to show you that I've done to provide this the ability for dancers to be able to take a single lesson, dance 6 tips, 5 tips, 6 tips, including singing calls, in something that would take about 2 hours per lesson. And the idea, of course, is that you get to play these same tracks over and over again. Many times dancers don't recognize that they're dancing the same thing over again. And so it's imperative that they complete lesson 1 before they go on to lesson 2, that type of thing. And that every dancer in the group is achieving success as they go along. And you also need new dancers who are willing to learn. Well, this could be an issue. But if you take your club and let everybody know that what they really need to do is, if they're talking to anybody who's new, anybody who might be thinking about dancing, it's very important that you get their name and their email address, and you begin to build a contact list of candidates for lessons. Not everybody, you're going to find that some of the people who want to learn to dance just can't make it in January, but they can make it in May, that type of thing. So it's imperative that you build a database of people and candidates, and you keep in touch with them on a regular basis. Here are the steps that you need to do in order to complete this type of a program. Number one, you want to acquire the assets. What are the assets? Well, you need the set of definitions. You definitely need that. You also need a place to dance. You need people to dance, but you need the definitions. You need the teaching guide, and you need a set of pre-recorded lessons. Even if you're a caller and you want to do this, it wouldn't hurt to have these lessons because you're going to get a different feel from my calling regarding how I present the material to my group. You can interweave that with what you're doing in your style and your techniques, and hopefully come up with a better overall product for the dancers. Step number two is you need to study these lesson plans. The study guide is broken into 12 individual lesson plans. It's not an arduous task at all, but you need to, and they include the definition of the calls to be taught within the lesson. So you need to be able to read the definitions, understand the definitions, and practice explaining a definition to non-dancers. That's going to be an integral skill that you'll develop over time, but it's integral to the success of the dancers that you'll be able to show them exactly what to do, what actions to take with each call. And then you simply push the button, play the recording, and let the dancers dance. Step three, invite new dancers. Well, as I mentioned previously, this is almost a separate effort that you need to develop a organized list of candidates in your area that are interested in learning how to dance. So on the next slide, we're going to see how to acquire some of these assets and what we actually mean by SSD, because it's a term that's being tossed around a lot today, and not many people really understand what it is. SSD stands for Social Square Dancing. It's a brand new program developed and sanctioned by CALLERLAB as a separate standalone program for entry-level dancers. And it's also designed to be a casual level of dancing. So it's for the, let's say, the dancer who wants to dance maybe once, twice a month. They can learn the 50 calls and they don't have to worry about other calls being taught while they're out of town, while they're taking trips, while they're traveling. They can come back and still dance the 50 calls. So that's the way CALLERLAB has designed the program. But it also has what we call a multi-cycle feature, in that because it's only 12 lessons in the entire series, you can get up to 4 series going in a given year. And we don't do that here in Jackson. We run 3. We run one in January, one in May, and one in September at our Jackson Claim Jumper Club. And we have experienced tremendous success. I've been involved with both the development of the SSD program and utilizing it to try to prove its feasibility since 2016. And the Jackson Claim Jumper Club has benefited by this by having their membership almost quadruple over that period of time in size.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, Lane Johnson, when you were talking about facilities, Lane Johnson posted that they're a small community and their local library allows them to use their community room each Monday evening for 2 hours at no charge. So that might be a potential location that's a public spot. So look into your community centers, your public libraries, those kind of things. The next question, Jim Masco asked, once purchased, can the program be shared? For example, could an association purchase the program and share it with their member clubs?
As far as I'm concerned, they can. I want this program to propagate as much as possible throughout the square dance community. The reason I charge money up front for the package is because it costs me money to post it online at the website, and I just want to be reimbursed for my costs. The fact of the matter is, if somebody buys this package and they want to share it with somebody across town in another club, fine, have at it. I don't care. I don't have any copyrights on any of this. I developed the program so that it would propagate and so that it would be spread around. So that's a great question, Jim. And Lane, you asked also another great question. You'd be surprised at how many facilities there are in your local community. When you only need 110 square feet, you don't need very much room to dance one square or possibly two squares, which is what you're going to be dealing with, quite frankly, most of the time. If you're dealing with more than that, then it's time to start thinking about renting a hall because these people can produce the income in order to rent a hall. So those are two great questions, and I hope I've answered them for you. Moving on. Thanks, Bonnie. All right. So the CALLERLAB is a huge organization that has just a tremendous library of its own of information that can be shared for the growth of square dancing, the growth of calling and development of calling, not just calling, but the development of square dancing itself. The www.callerlab.org, I'll show you their website in a second on the next slide. I'll show you how to navigate to the SSD, and you can grab a copy of the SSD teaching guide. You don't have to buy my program to get that. It's free at CALLERLAB. And go and get it there. Take a look at the teaching guide. A lot. The teaching guide includes the lesson plans and checklists as you go along, which, as a teacher, I taught high school for 7 years, and we always had to have lesson plans and checklists to complete any kind of a training program. And you need this in teaching square dancing as well. You need like good organized lesson plans, and you need checklists so you know what you've accomplished. When it comes to buying the pre-recorded packages that I've mentioned, it's done at www.musicforsquaredancers.com. And by the way, all of these slides have been prepared in the form of a PDF file, and Bonnie has possession of that file, and she can make it available through USDA, any which way she chooses. That particular website, musicforsquaredancers.com, is a place where I put out some music that dancers who live in remote areas who don't have access to calls can pick up a tip or two or whatever. And this is where you'll find the package for SSD. You can buy each of the separate lessons for $12 each, and it's a downloadable purchase. When you make the payment, you'll make the payment through PayPal. You don't have to have any account with PayPal necessarily, but you do have to have, you'll use your email address with PayPal. That would be your account, but you don't have to have a financial account with them. You can use any standard credit card that you have through PayPal. They'll allow you to do that, and you can charge it to your own credit card. Once you do that, then you get a download package, a download notice that has a link to the downloads. If you buy the lessons individually, you'll download them one at a time. If you buy the entire package of 12 lessons, then you're going to be downloading for a while because you're still going to download one package at a time, lessons 1 through 12. The package that I have of the entire thing includes almost 8 hours of constant dancing total. It includes 60 patter tips, and it includes 27 singing calls across all 12 lessons. So if you navigate to calllab.org, this will be the home page that you'll come to. And if you go to dance programs, let me see if I can get my laser thingy here. Yeah. If you go to dancer programs, the drop down social square dancing, you click on that. Unfortunately, the CALLERLAB website is a little slower than most. So hang in there, have a little patience, and you'll get to the social square dancing page. That'll have documents that you can download, including the teaching guides, checklists, all the definitions, everything. Okay. Any questions on any of that, Bonnie?
No questions. I did want to say that the handouts that you're presenting or the PDF of your PowerPoint will be available on the USDA website along with the recording early next week.
Okay, great. If you navigate to musicforsquaredancers.com, it'll bring you to the home page. You can see across the top there are buttons there. It says home, vocals, Eureka recordings, Kip's websites. Kip's website will link back to my personal website. Eureka recordings, that'll link back to my record company. You don't want anything to do with that. You don't really need that unless you're a caller. Vocals is the button you want to click to get to this page. It brings you to the catalog.php page. And it's this page where you will see an explanation of what the SSD learning series is all about. And here, SSD 4600 is the bundle that contains all 12 SSD lessons in a single bundle. You click add to cart, it'll add it to the cart down here. You'll see your total. And then you click the basket thingy and you go through the checkout process. So it's really simple to acquire. It is time consuming to download all 12 lessons. I'll let you know ahead of time, especially if you don't have a really good internet link and the download gets interrupted, then you got to start again. But have patience because it's worthwhile. The study plans, there are 12 separate study plans and dance sessions. Like I said, 60 padded tips, 27 singing calls. There's a lot there. There's really a lot there. When I say there's almost 8 hours of dancing, that's as if you would like to play track after track after track after track with no break. It would go on for 8 hours. So the SSD includes learning 50 calls in a 12-session series. If you're not familiar with that, you can download the SSD teaching guide from CALLERLAB and get an idea of what that entails. Let me see really quick here for a second if I can do a little additional sharing. I think I can. Oh, here, got the wrong thing going. Hang on, kids, hang on. Almost there. Okay, let me get rid of that. So here we are at the CALLERLAB website. There's the dance programs. There's the drop down. Are you seeing this, Bonnie? I can't hear you, Bonnie.
No, we're not. And
Okay.
another question came up is what equipment is required to run the program?
Say again, please.
Question is what equipment is required to run the program?
Okay, very good. Let me get back to the program here. So the question is, what's required? You need the tracks are recorded in what they call split track stereo. The voice is on the left track and the music's on the right track. So what you need is a device that will play back in stereo and allow you to adjust the balance between the tracks in order to get the right balance of voice over the music. So whatever system you use to do that, most of today's digital players will allow you to do that. So these are digital files, so they're not tapes, they're digital files. So you need something that you can create a folder structure, and that's all explained in the notes for you. How to, for instance, if you want to use your home computer or your laptop computer, it explains in the notes how to set up a folder structure, putting each lesson in an individual folder and in order, and then going to the folders, clicking on the various tracks to play them. They'll play through your laptop computer, they'll play through an iPad, they'll play through any device that'll play back a digital sound. You need some sort of a speaker system. If you're dealing with one square, it doesn't have to be anything that's extravagant at all. Sometimes even with just the speakers in your laptop computer, if you have a good one, or your home computer, you can do that. If you have a wireless Bose speaker, I use one at the house all the time, any kind of a small wireless Bose speaker or any other brand of wireless speaker, you can use that, hook that up through Bluetooth into your device and play through that speaker. So you can dance in your kitchen if you want. Push the kitchen table back, get the chairs out of the way, make enough room for one square. Put the Bluetooth speaker on your kitchen counter with your laptop computer, hit play, and you're dancing. Does that help explain the the nature of the equipment that's involved? Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the second item here on the slide. All material is self-explanatory. Each lesson includes several tips of dancing, both padded tips, singing call tips, that familiarize the dancers with the calls. So this is structured almost like if you could imagine yourself running a beginner class on Thursday nights, it'd be like 12 weeks. Each lesson is a complete night of dancing. By the time you take your breaks in between the tips and everything, you would have spent about 2 hours on a single lesson. And the idea is if you have these files available for you, you can run back through them a second time. There's enough variation in the presentation of the material from track 1 through track 6, that you can go back to track 4, back to track 3, back up to track 5, and the dancers it may seem familiar to them, but they get more experience dancing, so you can drill them using this technique as well. The pre-recorded tips can be replayed as often as necessary to reinforce learning. So as a teacher now, whether you're a caller or not, as a teacher, your job is to make sure that your students are all successful in learning. We oftentimes in the past, in the recent past, and to me that's like the past 30 years, we have catered to the more upwardly motivated dancer, the dancer who learns quickly. The fact of the matter is, in today's world, I don't know if you're dealing with any classes, you're going to find that there are some people who simply just don't get the whole idea of what these calls do. They don't get the relationship between themselves and the other 7 people they're dancing with, a thing called spatial relationship. The idea of making formations is foreign to them. It's the experienced dancer looks at this and says, "What is this true? How can this be true?" It's so simple for an existing dancer to oversimplify what it is a new dancer has to learn. And so as a teacher, we need to empathize and have patience with our newer dancers and understand that this is totally foreign to them. In the Jackson Club, we encourage our dancers to dance 2 years of SSD dancing before they even think about going to mainstream or plus. So
Kip,
that has,
I've got a
go
couple of
ahead.
notes. One, it would seem that this could be utilized in schools to teach elementary or even high school students to square dance. I know with COVID and with all of the other stuff that's happening, it's much tougher to get into schools. So this might be a program that you might want to share with your school teachers. Another thing that came up is if a club wanted to put a community dance together to get the new dancers up and dancing some simple calls, would lesson number 1 accommodate that?
Yes.
Okay.
Lesson number one covers the first 11 calls. I teach 11 calls in my first night, and I repeat that the second week that they're there. I start from scratch in both weeks. So they start in a large circle, and by the time they've completed that first evening of dancing, which is roughly 5 tips, if you will, they've gone through the first 11 calls. And that lesson number 1 in and of itself is equivalent to a one-night stand or something that you would present in a school situation, school environment.
Wonderful. Okay. Lane Johnson made a note regarding the equipment. He said Costco has an Ione brand speaker with Bluetooth capability plus an included microphone input. It's great for playing Kip's recorded track, plus the added functionality of being able to address the students with a mic. And that Ione is ION brand.
Yes, that's a very good brand.
Another one, of course, it was fun to have an actual caller teach the class, but yeah, they wouldn't have to pay anyone if you're doing the lesson 1 as a one-night stand. And Nikki Hensley Savio is saying that she'd been involved in being part of a square dance in elementary school years ago. So that's the input I have on the chat. Back to you, Kip.
Okay. If your interest is that specifically, like bringing square dancing into the school environment, you probably don't need all 12 of these lessons. You can get by with lesson number one, perhaps in lesson number two. With those two lessons combined, the difference call-wise, the difference in those two lessons is lesson number two introduces, um, oh gosh, now just jumped out of my mind. I think star through. Yeah, it introduces star through and one other call, half sachet, I think it is. And so that's the difference between lesson one and lesson two. So you could just pick up those two lessons, and that's all you need to accomplish your objective of calling it a school environment. By the way, I want to also mention at this point, you don't need any licensing for this. All of the music that I've used and produced, I've paid mechanical licenses on. You're not necessarily performing. You're not doing any performance, so you don't need a performance license, which is the typical type of license that callers need or clubs need when they're bringing in a live caller who's performing. So you do not need a performance license. That's the typical BMI ASCAP license, and the mechanicals have already been paid. Okay, so we're here to invite new dancers. So even one square at a time is progress. I mean, it's you've got to know that if we're going to build square dancing back up again, we've got to do it one couple at a time, one square at a time. It took us a lot of time to lose all the dancers that we've lost. And I don't want to make that sound negative because there's a thing called natural attrition. People move on to other things. There are health issues that prevent people from dancing. People move from one community to another where square dancing is not available. So there's natural attrition, and then there's other reasons why we lose dancers. So it's going to take us a while to build back our population again. But don't think that we can do it all in one big bite. It's done one square at a time. And 12 sessions equates to a fast turnaround. That means you can use the multi-cycle feature of this and do 12 lessons, take a couple of weeks off and say, hey, folks, have you really enjoyed this? Do you know anybody else that might want to do this? And if the answer is yes, invite some new people in and recycle them through. So that's the neat part about this program is the multi-cycle phase gives you an opportunity when the situation demands that you can run additional sessions, and you could possibly run up to 4 a year. It's imperative, I think, that you stick to this 50 calls. There's going to be places for these people to dance in our current square dance community. More callers and clubs are leaning towards the SSD program, and even the current program that's being a program realignment, let me call it that you're hearing coming from Ted Lazat at CALLERLAB. It's going to end up with a entry program, whatever they end up calling it, that's going to be just about 50 calls. And with the study that's been done over the last 7 to 8 years, I am 100% convinced that you're going to end up with something that's almost identical to the SSD list. And so if it varies, it's going to vary by a call or two. So you're preparing your dancers for the future as well as for the current SSD learning environment. Students who finish the first 12 lessons, they can be asked to invite their friends to the next series, and you can determine when you want to start that next series. For those of you who want to use the SSD sort of out of club to try to bring new dancers up to speed so they can get into the club, see, I don't see anything wrong with that myself. There are some purists that say, no, the SSD is provided as a standalone program, and you shouldn't want to try to move those dancers into the club environment. Well, I can tell you right now that the majority of clubs across the country are not necessarily plus. A lot of them are mainstream, and a lot of them are basic. And if you wanted to bring your people from SSD into mainstream, they only have to learn 8 more calls. There are the balance of the calls, the other 11 calls in the mainstream program are included in SSD. So they've already learned 11 mainstream calls to begin with. There's only 8 more to bring them to the mainstream, and then you can incorporate them into the mainstream club. Plus is another thing. You got to think hard about how you want to deal with plus clubs. Local clubs can sponsor mainstream classes to bring the SSDs into the club and thereby feed their membership. And as I said before, transitioning to plus is another challenge. In all the time that our Jackson Claim jumpers have dealt with the SSD program, we have found that the SSD dancers, they like to learn the mainstream, but they really don't want to go beyond that. It's amazing that we only have two, three, maybe four dancing students who say, "Yeah, I think I'm ready for plus." And in fact, they agree, and I think they are. In all the time that we've run SSD programs, we've only ran 3 plus programs since 2016. So plus is quite far removed from mainstream if you're not aware of that. And bringing people into the plus environment might be important because your club is a plus club, but you've got some work cut out for you to do that. The SSD dancer, it doesn't have the depth of knowledge in their calls to be ready to learn the plus calls. You might be tempted to say, oh, these calls are really good, but man, if they just knew load the boat, they'd have a lot more fun. Well, I can tell you that they might have a lot more fun. I'm not going to scold anybody for doing that, but you got to think about it. That can be what we call a toss away call. Teach them load the boat one night if you want, and then toss it away, but don't include it if you run an SSD dance. Stick to the 50 calls in the SSD program. Okay, now what are the benefits of doing this? Well, it quickly introduces new dances to the fun of square dancing, and that's the objective. A mass method of introducing new people into square dancing. And I say one square at a time. That might not sound very massy, but if you stop and think that if we had several dancers in our community who are doing this simultaneously, now you're beginning to see some serious numbers. The idea is to keep it simple. These newer dancers are not ready to get involved in the intricacies involved in plus dancing, especially. They don't see it. They don't see the framework. And so you need to keep things simple. Newer dancers do not mind repetitive dancing. Your upwardly motivated dancer does get bored quickly, and there's no question about it. And as a good teacher, you need to be able to focus on those dancers and make sure that something's available for them. You need some avenue where you can take your upwardly motivated dancer and move them on if they need to. But for the most part, you want to keep dancing interesting and simple enough so that you maintain the interest of these newer dancers. In the past, that's a contrary situation to what we've done in the past. We've let the slower dancers go. We've more or less catered to the upwardly motivated dancer, and we didn't care what happened to the ones that couldn't quite cut the mustard. What we don't realize maybe is they're running around the neighborhood saying, oh, that's square dancing. That's too complicated. You won't like it. We tried it. It wasn't so good. And that negative advertising kills us, absolutely kills us. So we want to keep it simple. Build a base of your newer dancers that may at some time move into a regular club. And that's what you want to do. You want to build a base of dancers that somehow you can then integrate into the regular square dance community. Take the load and the expense off the local club by providing new dancer learning opportunity. We've already mentioned that. These are all benefits of doing this type of a program. Address the issue of splitting a single dance session into multiple sessions to accommodate an introductory program. How many clubs take their club night and they split it? And they say, okay, we're going to have the first hour and a half is going to be for basic, and the next hour and a half is going to be for club level. You don't have to worry about that if you're running a separate, a nice, intimate, small introductory program. You can provide newer dancers the learning experience when they aren't any callers available to teach and call, and this is equally important. As I said, learning to call it's not easy today. I teach callers all the time. If it takes them 3, 4, 5 years before they become marketable, that's to be expected. I've got a gal right now that's ready to go out and purchase equipment, and she's been at it for 3.5 years. So it's just tough to find callers. And here we don't need callers. All we need is experienced dancers to run this program. The skills that you need, I think I may have mentioned them, but let me go over them specifically. The teacher needs to be a highly experienced dancer and someone who loves people. You just love to be able to take people and explain to them how to do these things, these calls. Teaching is a skill that requires a lot of patience, a lot of empathy, and a lot of understanding because people learn very slowly and they all learn at different rates. And you need to find ways to explain the same thing in multiple ways in order to get a point across to as many new people who are learning the skill as possible. The teacher doesn't need any calling skills, but they do need those other skills. And you need a desire to bring all the benefits of square dancing to new dancers. In other words, you have to have, from the 10,000 viewpoint, you need to have the objective of saying, okay, you're really benefiting the square dance community by bringing it to new people and bringing new people into square dancing. So I'll tell you that I don't have very much more, Bonnie. I think I'm done. I don't know how much time we've taken here. But I do thank you for the opportunity. It looks like we've run only for what, 28 minutes, half hour or so. But I do thank you. Maybe this can be, I hope people don't think that I'm trying to foist this program on you. I'm going to run away and buy a new yacht because you're all going to buy the SSD program. That's not going to happen. So I can tell you right now, I put this together to try to help and benefit areas that need it. And callers who are getting involved in teaching SSD to help you guys with some different perspective on how to present the material. So that's all I have. Do we have any other questions?
Well, I have a couple of comments. First of all, thank you very much, Kip. You did go about 45 minutes, so you're just perfect. You're right on time. But, first of all, are there any other questions? But in the meantime, I've got comments. This is truly fantastic. Thanks, Kip. This is amazing. I wish I could afford to buy you a yacht. And you are to be commended for your commitment to developing these programs and making them available to us to help us dance square dancing. I don't think anybody on here thinks you're selling Kip Garvey's products. I mean, I think, the whole idea is the fact that you're willing to let us share them with others, in our community, whatever. Because we are, I mean, even here in the Sacramento area, where you'd think we'd have a lot of callers, and we're very short-staffed. And there's a lot of other areas who don't have any callers anywhere near. So if you have a love of dancing, this is a great way to look at getting into it and getting a small group started. And like you say, I think though that small group is going to grow if you make it fun and entertaining, and you create a family environment around it. That's what I grew up with. That's what keeps me involved. And so, you
Yeah,
need
and
to
you
make
are
it
involved.
yeah, you need to make it a happy place to be. A comment from Lane Johnson: I've used this as a dancer with decades of experience, but also as a caller wannabe. We're having our first dance tomorrow and expect a square of our students and perhaps 4 more squares of supporting clubs from around the area. Someone else is saying, do you have any opinion regarding dancing on a carpeted floor? The library option was mentioned, but often the room is carpeted.
It depends on the pile, the carpet pile. If it's a typical library carpet is generally a very low pile, kind of almost like an indoor-outdoor type of carpet, and you can dance on that. You need to have your dancers not wear sneakers, that type of thing, because that really is very difficult moving their feet. If they wear like leather sole shoes or the equivalent neoprene, they'd be better off, and they can dance on carpet. We've held weekends in locations where the hall was carpeted. It's not the best alternative at all, but it can be done. And yeah, I would recommend as long as it's a low pile carpet, you could dance on it without issue.
That brings up another question that I have. With your system, I know in some cases callers can speed up or slow down the music. If you are dancing on carpeting, does your program allow for the pace of the recordings to be slowed down a little bit to accommodate dancing on carpeting?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
The long answer is yes.
But you need to be a technical genius to know how to do that, right?
Well, no, not necessarily, but I think the callers will understand what I'm getting at. The program called SQ View is the program that most callers put on their laptop when they go to dances, and they play their music through the SQ View software. That software has the ability to adjust the tempo, and it's free. It's a free piece of software. You can download it. You're going to need to have some help from a caller to set your folders up correctly in SquareView so that your music, so that all 12 lessons, all of the lessons are available for you, and you can select between them. But if you play it through that type of software, yes, you can control the tempo. Everything that I call, all right, I got to back it up. 99% of what I call is 124 beats per minute. And that's a very comfortable pace, especially for older dancers. And we're getting more older dancers today than we're getting younger ones. But I keep everything at 124. And you could dance on carpet at 124. 122 might be even more comfortable on carpet. But I would say that 124 beats per minute is very comfortable dancing, especially for newer dancers. And so that's the long answer.
Okay. We were asked to repeat the brand of that speaker. It was from Costco, and it's called an Ione brand speaker. And the Ione is I-O-N. And it's a Ione brand speaker with Bluetooth capability plus an included microphone input. And I hope that answered that question. Let me go back to all right. Thanks, Kip. And also for your development on the line. Of the online caller school. It's helped him a lot. That was from Lars from Sweden. Many thanks to Kip and everything Kip and Square Dancing are doing. Mike Gormley recommended that you buy them dance socks and make it part of the cost of the lessons. That might help work on the carpeting aspect. Then another recommendation was duct tape wrapped around the old pair of sneakers works fine for dancing on carpeting. So
see, you use duct tape for everything.
When I was growing up, it was duct tape and baling wire. So,
Yeah, the microphone input for the Ione speaker might not be a feature that's needed. If you have Bluetooth, everything that's being played through your system will go right through that speaker. You don't need to wire it up. But if you do want to have, for some reason, you want to have a microphone, it's nice to know that that feature is available.
And Ellen just posted that Ione speaker is $149.99 online at Costco.
There you go.
$150 for, plus tax for that speaker. Any other questions or comments for Kip? All right. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it, especially our folks from across the pond. Welcome, and we're glad to have you. Kip, thank you so much for being willing to do this for us and sharing your wealth of information. For everyone else, there's a couple of things. One, if you want to automatically get an email reminder about upcoming webinars, please leave your name and your email address in the chat. We post these on Facebook. We've started doing a calendar of events on Facebook. We also have an email list that gives you the direct information. Plus our schedule for the year, or most of the year, I've got a couple of openings still. But our schedule for the year of webinars is posted on the USDA website, which is www.usda.org. Our next webinar will be on Saturday, September 21st. It's on USDA's 501c3 not-for-profit organization. It's an opportunity for your club or your association or your regional group to obtain 501c3 status for your club or group under the umbrella of the United Square Dancers of America. It's a great program. We've had several people add on to it. And so this is more information about it. We have questions. Kip, any other comments from you, my friend?
No, I see Melva's online. Melva, please give me a call if you need any more information or help with those files that I noticed that you've downloaded quite a few. So let me know if you have any questions or if you need any file replacements. Okay, Melva? For everybody else, I appreciate you taking the time here this Saturday to discuss this issue. I hope maybe you've got something out of it. And in any event, I appreciate Bonnie especially and Jim and USDA for making this opportunity available to let people know about training dancers to dance without the use of a collar.
All right. Thank you all so much. Again, Kip, thank you for your expertise and your time. Wishing everybody a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. And you're getting a thank you for your time and your prompt response to her email. So,
Okay.
all right. Thank you all so much. You have a great day. And I'm going to stick on here. Oh, I'm going to stop my recording. Oh, do you want to give the host back over to me? Well,
Do I do that or do you do that?
I believe you have to do it, Kip. It's up in the participants. If you bring up participants list, it should show you who's the host, and you can assign it to Bonnie.
Okay, let me try.
yeah, for whatever reason, I'm not getting back to the recording to stop it.
I see Bonnie in the participant list, but I don't see the option to.
Oh, there it is.